There we go. Hello. Hello, creatives, community, kind folks out there. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. We are doing our demi-daily deep dives into his characters from two major intellectual properties, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because it's kind of our way of celebrating the movie Avengers Endgame coming up soon to close out 22 movies in that entire series over an 11-year period. And of course, Game of Thrones. We are in our last six episodes of the 8th season of the televised television show of Game of Thrones, based on the book's Song of Ice and Fire. But today, specifically, we are going to find out what we can steal, take, disseminate, discover about some of our characters. Now, you don't necessarily need to like or even be a fan of or have any knowledge of these characters. We're basically going to take the core essential values, what we can take from them, and use them for our tabletop role-playing games. Today, we are going to do Thor, the god of thunder, or rather, Thor, Odin's son. Now, there will be a slight difference. Those of us who have had a lot of knowledge and history with comic books, we are not going to need necessarily all of that knowledge, as well as the fact that there are many of you who have a lot of knowledge for in terms of Norse mythology, and we won't necessarily need to have all of that if any of you feel that you're lacking any of that knowledge. What we're doing is we're taking the pillars, as you will, and finding out what we can take to make up our player characters, NPCs, adversaries, and usually we don't have enough time, and many more. Usually, what happens is the last 10 minutes of an hour long live stream. That's where we really hit hard with our best ideas. But hey, that's what we're here to do. We're here to just knock the cobwebs out the brain and get into it. So Thor. Oh, by the way, good morning there, Rickard. Well, morning for me. Rickard says, just hit me that we should have done Thor yesterday. It was his day after all. He sure was. We're probably going to bring a little bit of that up as far as the fact that Thursday and Thor's Day are far more. It's much more than a coincidence. The names of the day of the week were named after many of these gods and goddesses and things like that. So, all right, Thor. How can we find, or what is a good description of the core essential value of Thor? Well, as we know, Thor is a character who, despite being an adventurer and a gallivant, a noble, or maybe not so noble warrior, has to learn a great deal about humility. Is quite destined to become the next person to sit on the throne or take over the empire, what have you, and has a father, Odin, who is brilliant and knowledgeable and has seen the ramifications of making bad decisions and living with those decisions, and so needs to teach his son a few lessons. The son, of course, is brash and hard-headed, and we're talking Marvel Cinematic Universe here, so we have at least a method to relate to. So of course the son is cast aside when he doesn't listen and is forced to understand his humility, live amongst, I guess you could say, the lower folk, the lesser people, the commoners, to understand his place in the world, and once again, take back his birthright. Now, between that point and our current storyline, he's had lots of losses, tribulations, learned some dark secrets about his own family and their heritage, come across quite a bit of loss for his own, on a personal note, for his own family, as well as a larger portion of loss of culture and society, and eventually the entire kingdom, to the point where he's even suffered some physical harm, lost his favored weapon, found out that he's got a greater legacy than that, had to get another weapon. So we do have a little storyline or through line. So I would say that Thor is a character who through his um, own skill and ability has lost much of his or has not gained much of his humility, has not had a need to think things through, can power through it, dog-headedly, whatever, and has slowly come to the realization that he's starting to, in a way, like a child learning to become like, learning to talk like their parents. Basically, it said, you know what, maybe I shouldn't run headlong into danger, and maybe I shouldn't, excuse me, look at the world in black and white. Maybe there are shades of gray. And by uncovering some of the dark secrets of his past and the legacy that his family continues, I believe that's where we can start picking apart some of the things we can steal from this character. Rickard Johansson says, for the 7 days, Tyr, Odin, Thor, and Frigg. I'm assuming Frigg for Friday, Thor for Thursday, maybe Tyr for Tuesday, Odin for Wednesday, or maybe Odin for Monday. Not certain. I'm well aware that their names are related to days of the week. I could never remember which ones there were. Yeah, and Rickard says, yeah. Oh, it says no, not Wednesday. It's Odin for Monday. Everyone says, I loved how in Ragnarok Thor mentions as a kid he wanted to be a Valkyrie. Yeah, and one of the things that really yeah. Oh, you're saying no, it is Wednesday, yes, or Wednesday. Zevran says Odin was Monday, Odinstag. Whatever the case, okay. We're not here to go through Norse again. We're not here to specify Norse mythology, because the point is that we want to use. Oh yeah, we're here to pull what we can from the character, irregardless of the setting, whether it's modern, future, whether your setting even has gods or goddesses to begin with. Anything like that. So one of the things that I feel that really symbolizes mythology itself and Thor, and when it comes to those kind of things, is that a lot of that represents how a culture looks at the world. So yeah, so one of the things that we could do when we're talking about Thor, or it could be the Greek gods, or Roman, Roman/Greek, or whether they're African gods or native peoples gods or what have you, is that they represent characters that are symbols of how the world hey, Mythos. They represent how the world operates. And so in many ways, for example, many people think about life and death, but within the Norse mythology, they have, Hela, who runs the underworld, and the Valkyries who take noble heroes off into another realm or whatnot. And these are real people, real individuals, real groups and factions that exist in the world. So yeah. So in some ways, what we could do with the character is that we could personify the things in the world that normally are not personified. So, for example, like you guys are mentioning, like Monday equals Moon Day. Who's to say that? Or what's another? Apollo riding his chariot through the sky as the sun. Maybe there is a person or a personality you can talk to that causes storms, or creates the rivers, or creates earthquakes, and an actual how do I say this, things in the world that actually have personalities that this character or the characters themselves can talk to and interact with, and this just happens to be part of their nature, or whether it's the moon or the sun or clouds and storms, or nature itself. Zevran says, and anyways, my original point about the Valkyrie thing is because the Norse gods, gender is more of a suggestion. Hell, Loki got pregnant at least twice, thrice. Yeah, yeah. And let's remember that when it comes to like the gods or godlings and whatnot, we are not beholden to physics. We're not beholden to time standards. We're not beholden to even like you mentioned, like Loki getting pregnant. Like we're not even beholden to things that make sense in the physical world. We're just beholden to the ideals of what it means. Like I believe it was like one of the Greek gods or something, like ripped ate the Titans, ate the Greek gods, and then ate mustard seed or something and vomited up the gods from his gullet or whatever and whatnot. It's crazy stuff like that. But why not use that? Your world does not necessarily have to operate through biology and physics and gravity and the things we know today. It could be that winds and clouds and storms are created by conflict in the sky or something, or when a character dies, they literally have to be taken away by women and winged horses, and they are judged with a council that decides where they're going to go into the afterworld, and maybe they have to sit there 101 days as the judgment goes on, and they defend themselves against it, like all that kind of stuff. And Rickard goes on to talk about like Loki is a shapeshifter into things, just like Zeus. Only difference is that Loki is the one getting pregnant rather than Zeus making things pregnant. Yeah, Zeus has a habit of like, if it's got a hole in it, he's going to stick his thing in it. Right? Oh, is that a rock? That looks like a hole in a tree. Let me go ahead and try that out. It's pretty crazy though. So everyone said Thor also dressed as a woman a lot. Yep. Rickard says, wasn't that purely for disguise, as with Odin and his a bazillion names and guys? Odin used to walk amongst man quite a bit. Yeah, Thanos, you should have stuck with the head. Thor, what? Yeah. Well, and I believe the Russos even said when Thor slammed his axe into Thanos's chest, it wasn't a mistake. He wanted Thanos to feel the pain, so he wanted to look in Thanos's eyes as he died. So it wasn't like, oh, you should have gone for the head. Oh, I made a mistake. It was actually Thor, from the Russos' point of view, it was Thor going, yeah, I hit you in the chest because I knew the pain would last long enough for me to watch you die. Yeah, everyone says, Thor did it for fun. Oh, yeah, he wanted to extend that pain out. So what we find from Thor and any other character, because we don't need to stick to so-called the God of Thunder, right? What we're doing is we want to make a PC, and what better way and what a grand way to make a player character to have their friends, family, and interactions be these larger than life individuals, right? So let's start on a basis. Let's normally we think of, well, my player character is an adventurer, but my mom and my dad and the people I know and the shopkeeper, they're all like 0 level characters. Well, why do we have to start that way? Why can't we have a player character whose best friend, he grew up with a troll and a minotaur, and where instead of playing in the woods, they played in the Feywild as children, that just happened to have a portal around the corner from his house. And maybe there was a storm giant that used to babysit him when he was smaller, and was picked on when he was growing up by a clutch of harpies that hung out in a tree and used to pick with his strange colored hair or something. Like, we could really grab onto larger than life things that for this PC and maybe for the larger world, but we're going to focus on a PC character right now, that this just happens to be an average thing, that when someone dies, maybe there are devil dogs or a black knight or ghosts or something that go to collect the dead, and this player character is like trying to beseech talks to the ghosts and the dead, and is like, no, I don't want my friend to go. And they're like, your friend will sit in front of the council of the dead for 101 days. You have that long to convince us that his soul should return to his body or something. And maybe that's how things operate. It's not a matter of, I need to go find a cleric and get a resurrection spell or something. Maybe it is like, the PC looks around at their friends when they're looking at their friend's dead body, and he's like, you do realize that he's in the netherworld. We can just go there, and I'm going to ask my dad if I can, borrow something or whatever. Yeah, Mito says right, but it was talking about Thor making it as it being a mistake. He says right, but it was a mistake in the fact that it was revenge that clouded him. You can use that against your players in a good way. Exactly, and also it's right. It's more than just. Let's be honest. It's a storytelling that really hits home. So it's not necessarily I want to see how much damage I can do and I'm going to roll for it. Oops, you messed up. It was more of it's a storytelling thing where here's a character who comes from this Viking, Nordic culture, and killing their enemy and making sure they feel it is a thing. It is a major thing that Thor. I mean, let's be honest. Thor is not Superman, right? Thor's left thousands of dead, and I believe in one of the movies he even mentions that how many thousands of people he's killed in the course of his, protecting the 9 realms and whatnot. Which, of course, going back to the 9 realms, all of them having different names in the movies. For humanity, maybe we're talking about wormholes in other universes, parallel universes, or maybe even other galactic systems. But for themselves, they have names: Jotunheim and Asgard and Midgard and all that kind of business. So who's to say that this PC doesn't come from a place where the names of these other worlds, or even other lands or islands or continents, aren't just different just because they came from a different place? Let's see. Mythos says, in my Rift campaign. Deadman says, like Loki being the son of a frost giant. Yeah, I was bringing up the dark secret part of the background of Thor, where he finds out that his brother was, the son of a frost giant. Of course, Loki doesn't look like a frost giant, and you don't even really get a hint of that until you find out until Odin reveals that about his own history. So again, is Loki supposed to be destined to grow into the size and power and blue skin of a frost giant? Well, it's not really physics, right? But why not have a player character whose brother was like, oh, by the way, your brother used to be I don't know, silver dragon or something, and raised amongst us. When I like, silver dragon, really? Well, I didn't know that. And maybe they're like, why was I given my birthright or something? Or just coming off the top of my head with that one. Mythos says, in my Rift campaign, one of the plot characters that I'm going to play as is an older, more experienced character. He will not start at level 1, but I feel it won't be overpowered because Rifts. Yeah, right. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like in this greater world, barely any of the people that are in Thor's wider realm are quote unquote first level characters. Most of them are pretty remarkable compared to normal humanity. So why not pull on those threads and just go all out, just go crazy with it? Zevron says, maybe a character is an Aasimar and lived on a celestial plane, and in this world the celestial plane was a warrior society. He leaves to find new challenges in the mortal plane. Planescape would fit. Oh man, Planescape, don't even get me started on that one. I love some Planescape. But absolutely could have been maybe this Aasimar type character. It is prideful and bold and a little bit of an idiot, and is not learning his place and learning to be just and noble, and is kicked out and is like, listen, you got to grow into somebody who's a little bit better to live here. And so yeah, that would perfectly fit, I would say. And then what a perfect excuse to play a celestial touched character who's not necessarily both lawful and good, right? Yeah, I mean, completely ignoring the alignment part of it, you could have a character who's got a little bit of an attitude, a little bit of pride, that that kind of thing. Rickard says, I will say to be careful about using it against the players, as the player might not go for the kill to get some RP out of the combat. Pulling that stunt in game would discourage RP moments in combat. Rickard, you make a perfectly salient point about the fact that as game masters and dungeon masters, if reward the things you want to see. If you want your players to role play out a perfect moment like that, that instead of going for the kill, they want to like slowly place their blade into the heart of the evil, and like, and just like monologue them till they get ready to die, and then the bad guy takes advantage of it. If you want to see that happen, reward that effect. So it's not a matter of punishing the players. It's the idea of, do you walk around the table, or do you tumble roll across the table, right? Well, if you punish the player by forcing them to make an athletics check to tumble across the table, and then making them look stupid when they fail, no one's going to jump across tables anymore. They're just going to walk around it, right? So reward the things that you want to see in your game, and try not to punish the things you don't. As everyone says, Gotenheim, land of the giant goats. Gotenheim, yeah, yeah. I didn't mean. I guess I was trying to refer to the land of the giants, Jotunheim, whatever. You know me, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation anyway. Mythos says, but if your player is blinded by revenge and the bad guy gets away, I would still reward the player for acting realistic. Absolutely. Yeah, Thor is OP, but Thanos is a whole nother level. I'm going to disagree with you slightly. Thor lives in the world where everyone is overpowered, so in a way he's not. He just happens to be living. He's transplanted into our mortal realm, so he's pretty much, he of course he's considered a kick-ass god. But in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in the beginning, they never referred to him as the god of thunder. Now, later on, they kind of dropped that whole thing, and Odin was like, what are you, the god of hammers? No, you're the god of, god of storms, right? God of thunder and lightning. But in the beginning, it really was, it's overpowered is only considered overpowered when it's not in a vacuum, right? When it's amongst other player characters. That's usually where it is, or within that world. Yeah, damn it. Thor's Rift's personified. Leave Rifts alone. I love Rifts, but it's crazy. Ricker says, to be fair, Loki turning into a giant would seem quite normal. I mean, horses, snakes, and whatnot. What's a giant form after that? Yeah, and of course, in Marvel Cinematic Universe, Loki's like an illusionist, kind of. He's got illusion powers, but in the Norse mythology, yeah, he was very much a shape changer, a charmer, a person built on deceptions and things like that. So yeah, he was known for like charming cattle to do funny things and stuff like that. As everyone says, he tries to make a wisdom save after being controlled by magic, rolls a nat 20. You may have taken over my mind and body, but there's one thing an Asgardian always keeps: his pride. Yeah. Oh man. Oh yeah. Mythos says, I meant that I meant in a good way. OP. Yeah. I mean, Thor is like the Marvel's version of like a Superman, kind of. And I don't mean personality wise, but yeah. And of course, Thor is always like, I've got other things to do, so I have to leave, which is another good excuse for him not always hanging around. I never understood the idea, like, Iron Man's fighting a bad guy. Why aren't the other Avengers there? It's like, because I don't call people when I've got a crap on the toilet. Like, other heroes do heroic things. They're not always hanging around each other waiting for their best friend to get into trouble, right? They're doing other things. So Rickard says, I was specifically referring to Thor not killing Thanos. If you pull the Thanos snap after the players try to get some RP out of the combat, I'm pretty damn sure they will never try again. Well, yes, I do agree with you that, especially if that was their intention, like, I don't want to kill him because I want to get some RP out of it, and then you as the game master, just like, or dungeon master, like, oh really? Oh, you're not going to kill him? All right, well, I guess he gets away with his plans. The Lich does the final gesture to I don't know, turn the land into an undead wasteland or whatever you have there. I do get that, and I see what you're saying. Again, writing a story and having it play out with the players is two different things. If I'm a novelist, I can make the characters do whatever I want and make it sound good. The Russo brothers writing the movie Avengers Infinity War wrote that in. So that's a whole lot. That's a whole different thing having happen to players. So yeah, Rickard, I do agree. Like, if you tried to pull that stunt it would never happen again. As a matter of fact, probably every time you tried to monologue your bad guys, your players would interrupt you and say, "Oh, while he's trying to tell us his bad plan, I'm going to hit him." You know, while he's distracted monologuing, I'm going to hit him. Which, as a kid, I remember people doing that to me all the time. Yeah, yeah, Goku, Frieza. You have an army. We have a Broly. Zevran says, if you want it to keep. Zevron says Thor using the Odin Force is OP, but that's a comic thing. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, the Odin Force. Yeah, and remember, in many ways, it's like Thor is supposed to be taking over the mantle of Odin, so he will eventually not only gain the power of Odin but also the responsibility, which is why Odin isn't a superhero. It's Thor that's the superhero, right? It's when, with great power comes a huge responsibility, and the one eye, the ravens, the 8-limbed horse, eventually the world tree. It's like eventually Thor is supposed to take on that mantle, which a player character very well could be destined to become a demigod or a divinity, and they are on the mortal realm, and maybe like a Hercules or any of the other half mortal, half divine heroes we've known in mythology. Maybe this player character is, I mean, they know it. They've lived amongst the gods. They're walking amongst mortals for whatever reason. Maybe it's punishment. Maybe it's to learn something. Maybe it's, the 13 trials or whatever the case may be. And so maybe the whole point is to get to 20th level for good or bad to take over that mantle. Metagame wise, the player will become Odin, but maybe within the world that PC is trying to fight against their destiny, and little by little they're learning that their parentage is like, I didn't realize they had to make all these tough decisions. So everyone says, if you wanted to keep the villain alive to do a plot thing, you could describe the final blow so you allow the snap. The players get that blow, but can think he survived only because of the Power Stone. Yeah, well, again, execution is the key. It's not actually doing it. It's like how you did it. And also, if your players trust you as a game master or dungeon master, they might actually find that kind of cool if you've done it once, right? Remember, this is a sampling size of 1. So imagine Thor's done this already 5 times, and each time he's going to put in that final blow, started the monologue, and the bad guy gets away with what they're doing. Yeah, that won't come across too good. Rickard says, it's another thing if Thanos is on 1 hit point after Thor's attack, and it's Thanos' place in initiative. You better show some documentation on that one, right? Oh man. Betho says, which is why, as a DM, have a flexible story. If your players think of a way to kill a villain earlier than you plan, by being smart, let them. Never rob the players for playing well, because just write a new better villain. Of course. What are we going to do? Run out of monsters in the monster manual? Run out of ideas? The whole point is, every idea you never get to use is another obstacle you can put in front of your players, and so your players kill your, I don't know, Lich trying to take over the world. Apparently the Lich was being controlled by some kind of evil fiend or something, right? Just make more stories. And by the way, it's a collaborative storytelling thing done without retconning, right? No novelist writes a book and just goes, oh, I think I'm going to make a story, and then doesn't edit it. Everything we've seen in mass media has been gone through with editors and copywriters and storyboarders and stuff like that. We don't get the chance to do that at a role-playing setting at a table. It's one and done, man. It's one and done. And that's very difficult to come up with a perfectly told story. Yeah, Rickard says, quote, did you say you did 14 damage? You sure? Only 14? Okay. Yeah, right. Mitha says, it's a rookie DM mistake, one that I hope I would never make. Yeah, we all make. dude, I'm an old head, and I make rookie mistakes on the norm. So it's getting wrapped up in the moment. You know, the PC is like, oh, I can't wait to kill this guy, and I'm gonna make him feel the pain of killing my parents or whatever. And then DM's like, oh, this is my biggest, baddest bad guy. Thanos is the greatest. He's gotten all the stones, and none of the players were able to stop him. You know, I mean, sometimes you just get wrapped up into the moment. Zevron says, I just read the section for Starspawn in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. Those enemies are so abusive that it would be a fantastic god tier enemy to deal with. Yeah. Imagine playing your Thor character fighting eldritch abominations. Of course. So, yeah, it is. Everyone says, thankfully, I have the benefit of 30 plus years of other DMs playing the game. Yeah. Now, again, with a Thor type player character, we're not limiting the excuse of you're just immortal, you don't know about the wider world. If you have a player in your group that's like knows a lot about Planescape or Spelljammer or any of these other worlds, why not make a player character who has an internal knowledge, an internal compass about these other worlds? So, for example, there are you can get the free downloads. I know Ravnica. Plug for Ravnica is released as a hardback book, but there's also the PDFs of the other Magic the Gathering settings. Why not make a PC that used to be or is part of or was born as a planeswalker and is able to, you know, and you as a game master, you don't have to have a rule that says, well, what power do I give this player? They're just able to walk from plane to plane. Now you can limit it by how often they can do it. Maybe it's only like once a month. It could be a certain time of day. It could be a certain ritual and whatnot. Maybe it's very exhaustive or something. But again, with using, you know, a player combining our meta knowledge of the wider world of your setting into a player character that's familiar with these other settings might be a great way to make an excuse to have the players jump from Dark Sun, the Spelljammer, to Ravnica, to what's Curse of Strahd? What's that world in Curse of Strahd? But you guys can remember. Ricker put it in the squirrel. Yeah. Oh man. Dead Man Story says can't remember the name exactly right now, but the Starspawn could be summoned by the space gypsies of Spelljammer. Now I'm not familiar with the ecology and the societies in Spelljammer, but this player character, of course, does not have to be related to Thunder or the God of Thunder, but they very well could have been a Spelljammer, or maybe they're trying to get their ship back and they just happen to be amongst the other player characters or something. Or maybe they could even navigate basically the phlogiston or phlogiston, as some people pronounce it, on their own. Like almost like flying through space on their own, and they're bringing the other PCs with them. So maybe they need a ship to travel or whatnot. It's almost like the idea of people complaining about the Aarakocra having wings and flying speed at first level. It's like, well, it's only overpowered if there's only one Aarakocra and it happens to be that one player character at first level, right? But if that player character and so many other NPCs and adversaries in the world have the same abilities, there's nothing, Ravenloft, thank you. There's nothing overpowered about it. So if you as a game master say, oh yeah, by the way, all you guys have flight, or every character has dimension door or plane shift or whatever as a normal stat, why not? That's your table. There are no role-playing police, right? Zevron says, hey, if that player has knowledge of other worlds, you can have the player explain locations lightly or make things up, have it seem like the world is more real by a player describing it. And that's my point, right? Like, why? The dirty word in role-playing is metagaming, right? Oh, your player wouldn't know how to kill a troll. It's like, well, why not? Why not embrace it? Instead of, it's harder to fight against it than to embrace it. So if one of your players is someone who like gets every WotC book, you know, learns so much about Norse mythology or mythology in general. We're happy to be talking about Thor, but or knows about Magic the Gathering settings or something like that. Why not make a character that knows about those things? Oh, my uncle, yeah, he lives on Ixalan, and my best friend, we used to play in, you know, Ravenloft or something like that. And I know I'm being silly with that because I don't think you'd have a playground in Ravenloft. But my point being is, why not embrace that? And then when that, like you said, Zevron, when that player comes up with NPCs, locations, describes some kind of elemental effects, then it makes it seem more real with the other players, because they're like, oh, the game master's not telling us, the other player is telling us this thing, right? Mita says this. Oops. Oh, it moved a little bit. Okay. The starting world is beneath his notice at the start, but he has agents to weaken worlds by civil war. What do you say, Myth? Oh, you're referring to you're referring to the big bad, right. With being able to, like, the next big bad being drawn into the larger conflict if your big bad gets taken out quickly. Yeah. Zevron says, hey, gigantic fiend hell-bent on taking over the world is always nice. Of course. Rickard says, the Thor NPC, going towards NPC, a fighter trying to regain their divine powers, having been placed on a trial by their god. So Rickard's starting to go into, like, Thor as an NPC, and it could be maybe there's like, Thor is kind of a carouser in many ways. So you could have this NPC who's, like, big and bold and brash, and this Thor NPC is kind of like doing the bro hug with all the player characters, and it could be that they're helping this individual either regain their powers or learn a lesson, or learn humility, or even gather the ancient artifact pieces so he could rejoin the divine council or something. And maybe the player characters will be pulled along with this Thor-like NPC along into the greater realm or something. That's a possibility. Also, what a great way for an NPC to get the other player characters in trouble, because he's, you know, trying to seduce queens and princesses and starting barroom fights and getting into arm wrestling matches with giants and whatnot. And other players are just like, dude, we could have talked our way out of this. You know, and the Thor NPC is like, why? I've got a hammer. I could beat him. You know what I mean? Not realizing that, yeah, maybe you should have talked your way out of this, or you let us talk his way. Rickard says, or you just make it more low key and just take plot points. First Thor movie, essentially just one prince trying to usurp the throne by sending their true heir away, which is a great plot point for a PC or an NPC, that the true heir is sent away. The king was convinced to rip the powers away from the true prince, and then this person is cast down amongst mortal kind. Yeah. Let's see. Zevron says, maybe your Thor character is a druid using their primal magic as control over nature or weather. Your wild shape is emboldening your body with the strength of a bear instead of actual animals. There is the DC hero Animal Man was very much like that. He never physically, or Vixen is the other character. The character never physically changes, but their body gains the powers of the wild shape. And hell yeah, I would absolutely let somebody do that. You're like, hey, I've got wild shape, but I really don't want to. I don't want to turn into a, I don't know, an anaconda or a python snake, but I want to be able to wrap my body around someone to have the same abilities. Hell yeah, yeah. Why not? You know, it's my table. I can do what I want. And if the player thinks that's cool, I'm all for it, man. Rickard says, to be honest, Barbarian Zealot would be a damn good fit for a Thor character. Yeah, I'm with you. Barbarian Zealot, and of course, there's some people like, oh, Tempest Cleric, screaming at the screen like, Tempest Cleric. Yeah, yeah, we get it. Yeah, Mythos talking about about the Rift's big bad. Yeah, big bads are always that's its own live stream about incorporating big bads and having them sit in the background, and when to introduce their their influence in the world, little by little, sprinkling in the clues and stuff like that. Yeah. Zeb says, I don't remember Vixen or Animal Man casting a lightning bolt. No, I don't remember them doing that at all. But a person who can not only uh, embrace the animals but controls nature around them. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. Rickard says the Zealot does get some lightning stuff in there, or is that a different barbarian? I know there's one that is there is a different barbarian. I don't have Xanathar's guide. There's a different barbarian that can pull that's powered by nature, and I can't remember it. But anyway, okay, so also for Thor, the Thor type character as an NPC. Oh, dude, thanks for the super chat hit. Oh man, yeah. Mythos says, my real big bad is a Dormammu type bad guy in another world. Yeah, Dormammu, the eternal or timeless, I guess. That's my true big bad. The starting world is beneath his notice at the start, but he has agents to weaken worlds by civil war. I just wanted your thoughts on it as all. Well, first of all, thanks for the super chat. Although the point of having these conversations is to stick to the point. Otherwise, what would be the point in having Thor in the thumbnail and whatnot? But I will answer your question. A Dormammu type big bad is absolutely the purpose of that is to have a being that is so powerful, and usually most of these extra planar powers, and I'm going to relate this to what we're talking about. Most of these extra planar powers or characters, even Thanos himself, usually finds most of humanity as ants, right? Like most of us don't think about when we're running through a field or playing football or soccer in a field or what have you about the small little anthills that are there until we stop to look at it. And so most of the time when we talk about the bigger stories of the evil lich on the horizon, the dragons trying to take over, the goblinoid armies and whatnot, it's usually trickling in a little bit of what they're doing into the story, because even in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, at the end of a number of the movies, Thanos was like, "Oh, get this thing for me, get the stone for me," and then eventually he gets the gauntlet. He's like, "Oh well, I guess I'm going to have to do it myself," and takes the gauntlet and puts the gauntlet on. And one of the best things about that is you really don't need stats. Don't stat out all your bad guys, because if you stat it, they will kill it. Sometimes your big bad just needs to be big and bad, and yes, your players will kill 1, 2, 3, 5 of the lieutenants of the big bad individual. And through their destruction, the players gain more information like, oh, I know where they're getting their power from. Or we defeated the Lich and the Dragon. We didn't know they were actually linked together. We thought they were enemies of each other. Maybe they were fighting each other for the divine power from this elder god or something. Now we get back to Thor. What if we have ourselves this Thor NPC, and this Thor NPC, much like Odin casting his son out, right? It's like, listen, Odin's like, listen, I got to protect the 9 realms, and you're not helping me out, and you need to learn because I'm getting older, and I'm going to go into my Odin sleep. So I'm going to have to throw you into the crucible of knowledge, cast you down to earth or whatever plane it is, and you're going to have to learn real quick because this elder god from the the nether regions or the outer realms of space is coming. And so the player characters might be they may not necessarily be the ones to stop this Dormammu, but they may be instrumental in recovering or teaching the individual who is to fight them, right? And maybe the story, maybe the players are maybe thinking like, man, I really wish we would be the one to stop them. And it could be that they elevate this Thor NPC up to their level, and the Thor NPC realizes like, wow, I'm not destined to be the king. Maybe the player character is supposed to be destined. By the way, again, Mythos, thank you very much for the super chat. I do appreciate that's far too much. You're far too kind, but I really do appreciate that, man. And yeah, it's just a little smack on the wrist, dude. Just a little smack on the wrist. Zevron says, we talk either about not being restricted to Norse mythology, makes me want to make an Egyptian Thor. Ooh. A forged cleric that enchants their Kopesh, saying it's a gift from their father, the sun. Ooh. I'm liking that. And of course, with like the Egyptian gods, they're the animal-headed gods are very emblematic of what they are about. Bast with the cat head, and Osiris and Thoth and all that kind of stuff. Man, that would be sweet. That I gotta admit, that would be sweet to use. And what a perfect way to reskin it, right? You could take the exact same Thor story, turn it Egyptian, and it would be 5 games later till the players are like, you know what, this kind of reminds me of Thor, but I didn't think about that in the beginning, right? So yeah, oh hell yeah. Mitha says you could give the players MacGuffins to power them up or neutralize the villain's power. Well, of course, and again, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to give them like character levels. It could be that they have to uncover a clue, much like Doctor Strange realized Dormammu is timeless. So a timeless, realized, or the player came up with the idea like, well, a timeless creature wouldn't know what a time loop is. And so they kind of use that. So sure, you could absolutely do that. Mythos says like Thor's hammer. Yeah, of course. Using the Dead Man, a Storyteller tells Zevron Horus is who you need. Oh, Horus, wasn't he the avenging Egyptian god, something like that, with the hawk or falcon head? But yeah, absolutely, man. That would be sweet. Maybe the purpose is to assemble Osiris's body parts because they were cut up and spread around the world, and reassembling Osiris so he could join Ra into the sky or something, or what's the jackal-headed one? Set. Whatever the case may be. But yeah, absolutely using them. Rickard says daisy chaining the movies for plot. Okay. The heir gets exiled and being captured by his brothers, retainers, and sold as a slave to the gladiator pits. Ooh. And then goes on to say, having reclaimed his honor, he arrives back to find that the neighboring nation has invaded as their brother has messed up. I like that. I like that idea of daisy chaining those stories as well. Oh, Harry, what's going on? Mentions Anubis. But absolutely, when you're talking about daisy chaining the whole storyline, gets cast out, comes back, like you said, sent into the gladiator pits, or invading army takes over. I love that idea. I absolutely love that idea. Zevron says a villain Thor is actually quite easy to do. Someone drunk off their own power, thinking they could do whatever they want, rage being their prime motivator. Maybe they try to usurp Odin. Absolutely, Zev. And I even think we often have our villains, our big bads, being quite intelligent. Who's to say this person just isn't massively powerful and just an idiot? Like, not just an idiot in terms of not knowing something, but motivated purely by emotion. I'm going to do this thing, and I'm going to do it now, and everyone's just like, face planting themselves like, really, dude, are you going to do this again? Maybe this person is fighting against an enemy nation, and everyone knows that there should be a peace treaty. Thor again, right? And as an enemy, he's like, no, he keeps, this person is so powerful, he keeps spawning a war that's devastating the world, and everyone else is trying to stop him. Like, you need to stop fighting. None of us want to fight. And here he goes, pulling out his major weapon. It's got all this power. It's gifted with all this energy and power, and just will not stop. So I love that idea. Mythos says, "Hey, I need the boot on my behind your chat your rules, your game master." Says DBJ. Thanks, Mythos. No. Listen, I appreciate the enthusiasm. I absolutely do. Believe you me, I appreciate the enthusiasm, but I do try to maintain this as a hey guys, here's what we're going to talk about. So yes, absolutely. Oh, you're so funny. Oh man. Technically, I was a sensei, not a senpai, but that's a minor note. Oh, everyone says, look at God of War 2018. Ooh, God of War. That's Thor throughout the game is mentioned as a drunk idiot coasting through life with his rage, slaying all in his way, leaving a trail of orphans. You could even follow me on this. Thor, Odin, whatever Norse gods or things in your world, they could be real and they could just be part of nature. So when a storm strikes the land and devastates, starts forest fires and there's floods and everything, they could be 1,000-foot tall beings in your world that are just acting out their nature, and the people are just pissed off at them. And the player characters are like, maybe they need to find a place for humanity to go. And when they look up in the sky and it's torrential rain start happening and thunderbolts start coming down, when they look up, they actually see in the clouds this bearded person with a hammer throwing their bolt of lightning bolts across and smacking in the mountains and whatnot. That could be a real thing in your world where, no, it's not, it's not normal weather patterns. There are actual gods having fights in the sky, and that's what happens when summer comes along or winter comes along. The goddess of spring is actually taken down into the netherworld, and we suffer for it, right? Harry, of course, brought up Anubis. I mentioned that before about Anubis is the jackal-headed god, because I couldn't remember the name. I thought it was Set. Everyone says Horus and Ra are sun gods. Sekhmet, lioness goddess, is a vengeance goddess, or goddess of vengeance. Mythos, Jafar. AJ Pickett, hey, what's going on there, man? There are a lot of parallels between Thor and the Maui of Polynesian mythology. Loki and Thor engaged in a lot of trickery. AJ, what's going on there, man? The hell of a long time, and thank you very much for joining in way over here, man. Well, I wonder what time. Just pop in. What time is it in your time zone, if you don't mind? If you're still in the chat, man, just pop it in. Rickard says Thor as a conqueror would definitely work with heavy doses of divine mandate. Oh shit, yeah. Zevran goes on to talk about the Egyptian Thor. Every time he slays a powerful foe, he offers to properly give them a mummification ritual, ensure they see the afterlife to be properly judged. Ooh, I like that idea. Or if he can't, he leaves a feather on their chest as a symbolism of the scaled Ma'at. Yes, because the scales of Ma'at. Yeah, because the scales of Ma'at are like it's the being judged as you pass on to the other world. If I'm not mistaken. So that would be, wow, it's 11 p.m. Damn. It is almost 6 minutes from 7 a.m. here in the States, dude. Oh man, that is so cool, man. Wow. And thanks for popping in. For side note, guys, as if you don't know this, please like, share, subscribe to AJ Pickett's YouTube channel. He does something that, or maybe I probably stole from him, where each video is about a specific mythology of something in the greater Dungeons and Dragons world. So absolutely look that up, guys. When you leave here, and so go, please like, share, and subscribe over to AJ Pickett's channel. Mythos goes on to say, or you have your main hero be a little snot and needs to taste the humble pie like Thor did. Might have to use that. See, it's a good stay on topic, right, DPJ? No. But I do like that. Thor does need some humble pie, at least very early on. And it could be the player character. Maybe it's a reflection of the player characters. Like maybe the player characters are kind of like idiots themselves, and kind of like Lone Wolf and Cub, where Thor is the epitome of how the players are acting out, and the players themselves have to correct their own behavior which reflects onto the Thor type NPC to get them to correct their behavior, if you understand where I'm going at that. Harry says Christy would just be heading for bed. Yeah, she's out in Christy Rand is out in Hawaii, I believe. Mythos says, damn, that's good. Yeah. Set no one knows what his animal. Zevron says set no one knows what his animal is. Is that true? Why my brain is stuck on a jackal, I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking like scorpions, and that's not his head. Maybe he just happens to be surrounded by those damn things. But whatever the case may be. Yes, everyone says final 15 minutes again. Yeah. Here we go, pulling all the good stuff out of our ass, right? Oh man. Everyone says it's self-fulfilling prophecy at this point. Yeah, maybe none of us are like Thor. Maybe none of us are learning from it and just going, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to pretend we already talked for 45 minutes, pull out of our best, greatest stuff, do it in the first 15 minutes, and maybe people won't have to sit through an hour to get to it. Oh, golly. Oh, man. Mythos says, I always say, plagiarize responsibly. Absolutely. So Rickard goes on to keep us back in online, saying, ruthless conquerors from the frozen wastes. No one could stop them, and many nations have already fallen before the divine emperor of the all-seeing sky. His rage and lust for combat rivaled by none. And again, I love what you're saying here, Rickard, because often with our big bads, they have a larger plan ahead, like, oh, I want to take over the world to make it in my own image or something. But why not have, and I know this is very stereotypical, but why not have in your world a lot of civilization? People are like educated and civilized, and from the northern reaches are these barbarians that keep raging down into the other worlds. And mind you, they don't have to come from the north, but you get what I'm saying, right? If you don't want to be so stereotypical, but the northern Vikings, yes, I'm being stereotypical going into that, could be raging down into the civilized lands, and the PCs could live in the civilized lands, or they could be a combination of coming from the north, and the culture clash could be there, and maybe society can't get above their level because of these wars that keep happening over and over and over again. And Thor, as a bad guy, of course, the name doesn't have to be Thor, keeps just causing these conflicts over and over again, which would be really great. Going back into the chat, because you guys are like popping a ton of stuff in here. Harry brings up Japan, probably talking about Japanese culture, if I'm not mistaken. We can touch on that. Mythos says, and the best part is if the players do that on their own, the better. Yeah, if the players do it on their own, hell yeah. AJ Pickett says, my favorite story is when Thor was tricked thanks to illusions and enchantment into trying to drink the ocean, lifts the body of Midgard serpent, and so on. Yeah, I love those stories. Love you too, baby. Bye. Sorry, you guys. Mythos says, we also love Miss DBJ letting her hang out with us goofballs. Yeah. I always know I've hit my hour mark because my wife has to go off to work. She says goodbye. But what AJ Pick is bringing up is those cool stories, those not larger than life, galactic sized stories. Missions like, hey, you guys have to drink the ocean, and then player characters are looking at each other like, drink the ocean. Wow. AJ Pickett says, I saw a game where Ghost pulled a nasty mind trick on the player characters at a banquet table. The characters were actually eating their own arms and legs. Ooh, DJ put the image of Set in Discord. Did you? Oh, sweet. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much. Yeah. Rickard says, DBJ, it's cool. I'm Swedish, so I brought up the whole pillaging thing. Yeah. I didn't want to. I don't like just lowest common denominator stuff. We're better than that. So, the whole idea of Vikings just automatically just being just barbarians and mindless and stuff, I think is a little bit foolish, but whatever. Yeah, so you're fine, Rickard, and thank you for that. So I didn't have to do it. AJ says, what if your D&D world is the Midgard with the actual seat of civilization being located in the upper planes like Celestia? See, I love that idea. And I don't know if you heard earlier, I was just saying, like, why fight against the metagame of players that know so much about Dungeons and Dragons, why not make player characters that come from different worlds, right? You know, why do we have to, like you're mentioning, why does civilization have to be on the prime material plane? Why can't players just climb up the mountain of Olympus and just literally they can just walk up to Olympus? Why can't players literally swim down into the deep oceans or what have you? Now, of course, you might want to grant the players a MacGuffin, right? You don't have to give them a spell. You just give them a MacGuffin. Maybe one of their parents, one of the players' parents, much like Achilles' mom, I believe, was a spirit of the ocean or something like that. Maybe one of the player characters it has one of their uncles or something is from the ocean or the storms or nature or whatever. You know, hey, my dad's best friend is an earth elemental. I'll go ask him if we could go into the netherworld. And the uncle's just like, I don't know why you kids want to play around down with those drow, but oh, fine. If your dad says you can go, I'll let you go, right? I mean, why not play with bigger and bolder and better stories? It's in front of us. And again, there are no RPG police. You can do whatever the hell you want. Oh, Harry says Christy is in Japan now. I didn't. Sorry about that, man. Sorry. Yes. Thank you very much for that, Harry. Because she popped in a little bit and was like, oh, I missed the live chats and stuff, which is fine. I'm missing some of the chat here. Sorry, Amitho says also have possible loss happen to the party's loved ones, like Thor lost his mom. We often look at the fun stuff when it comes to Thor and the whole Norse mythology, but there's a lot of loss, and especially in the MCU. Yeah, he lost his mom. He saw his brother get killed. You know, Norse and Viking culture is pretty brutal. So while you can absolutely, there is nothing wrong with mixing both high magic and gritty realism together. Both of those are not exclusive. And gritty realism is not matter. It's verisimilitude. So it's not realism, but it's within the context of the world in which you're in. You know, if the Midgard serpent that circles the world starts eating people and killing people, then they're eating people and killing people, right? There's a lot of loss there. It doesn't necessarily mean that it follows physics, but it applies to the rules within that world. So yes, you can combine both of them. Zevron says he's notable because his animal spirit isn't seen in Egypt, possibly long since extinct because of how he was an antagonist of Osiris. Oh, maybe that's why Set doesn't have an animal, or seems to be the anti-animal kind of thing. Yeah, I can see that. Mythos maybe at certain plot points roll a D100, and depending on the role, they may lose an NPC. It would have to be used once or twice, not too much. I like that. Rickard says, I find it a great start as long as you build something with more depth on top of it. Talking about taking stereotypes, whatever cultural stereotype you take. And as we know, stereotypes exist because people see them and say, so the equation makes it true. And then we also know that those stereotypes are broken because when you look deeper, we all see that there's always something broken within the stereotype. So they're both true, and it's like Schrodinger's stereotype. It's both true and not true at the exact same time, I guess. Ricker says, I have to bring this up. Thor as a warlock cleric with himself as a patron. We talked about that before, about making yourself your own warlock patron or your own divinity, which kind of is true. Although Odin makes a perfect divine patron, divine cleric divinity / warlock patron, makes a perfect individual, especially, who's your warlock patron? My dad. Why not? Who's your warlock patron? My mom and her 2 sisters. I mean, that'd be sweet. And the player character literally talks to them, has dinner with them, maybe gets smacked in the back of the head for doing dumb stuff. I would absolutely embrace that as well. Zevron says, I once climbed Olympus, had relations with one of Odin's daughters. He didn't take it kindly and suplexed me off the mountain back to Earth. DM said, I lived, but I lost 3 levels. It was 20. Oh, I love that. That's hilarious. And listen, I would really make it a suplex right off the top rope, man, right back down to earth. Like, get your rear end back home. That would be sweet. That's funny, but I love that. I love that absolutely, man. And I wasn't allowed back to their realm. Wow, that's funny. I love that idea. That's a great story, dude. Mythos is also it would have to be dependent on their actions. Like if they act in a certain way or roll well, they might be able to save them. Yes, well, of course, you know things move at the speed of plot, right? So if you start threatening people's NPCs, they're especially the ones they hold on to. Yeah, you got to use that. Not often, but you got to use it. Oh, shoot, oh, AJ. AJ says in the movies. Oh, sorry. Dead Man says Seth's animal is called a Shah. Ooh, pulling out the info there about Set, because Set's kind of a Set is like the one-off from the other Egyptian gods, which is why I couldn't remember his animal head because he doesn't have one. AJ Pickett says in the movies, Odin reminding Thor, quote, "Who cares about your magic hammer? You are literally the god of lightning." Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, that's something else too that you can play within the gaming sphere, right? When someone gains a level, we normally are like, "Oh, you gained enough knowledge to gain another level." Why not just make it like embracing their heritage? So when a player gains more class abilities or features or something, it could be their parents or mentor or them learning that they don't need to use a spear, that they can summon a spear out of magic or something. You know, it's like I stopped using a spear. My spear is now my air quotes magic missile, right? It could be they're learning new techniques or embracing the heritage that was given to them by their bloodline or the worlds they've gone to, or maybe instead of their class features being spells, they could be something that they gained from climbing Olympus or going down into the netherworld or whatnot. You know, it's the player characters climb up to Asgard to meet Thor. Thor hands them each a lightning bolt, and then that lightning bolt represents something that their character class features have gotten or whatever, right? Mythos says, "What is this Crusader King 2 sacrifices to Odin and reforms Norse religion?" I'm not following you on that. Sorry, dude. Rickard says, "One thing to be said about Norse stuff is that it might be gritty, but they make a lot of jokes as well. Remember, one of the sagas, one guy was sent to check if their target was home. He got stabbed by a spear, coming back to the rest of the gang, and when asked if their target was home, he responds, 'Don't know, but his spear was home,' and then dies." Wow, I didn't know that. But I do know that there's even a cultural honor in making like brutally sardonic jokes. Even people in the military who are in life and death situations, doctors, EMTs, paramedics, and such, many of them make a lot of jokes too. On the outside, we don't like that, but when you're surrounded by death and destruction at a moment's notice, humor is our psychological defense mechanism. So having fun with the death and destruction isn't actually a bad thing. You're actually embracing the whole idea. Yeah, I'm trying to follow the chat, but it's popped off here. So anyway, because I'm going to have to start to rein this in. So let me go back into this. Dead Man brings in the Shah, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is usually depicted as a slender canid resembling a greyhound or a jackal with three distinguishing features: a stiff tail, often forked at the end, which stands straight up or at an angle. Whether the animal is sitting, standing, or walking, its ears, also held erect, are usually depicted as squarish or triangular, narrowest at the base and widest at the squarish tops. And a long nose, often with a slight downward curve. It is normally depicted as black, but also may have been reddish, almost like an anti-animal, like something that wouldn't exist in the world. That's kind of different. I like that. I'm starting to embrace a lot of this. I wish we could do like 8-hour chats and whatnot. So everyone says Thor's niece is Hel, goddess of dead, normally called Hela in the comic book, so you don't end up calling this woman Hel. Imagine having that familiar relation when eventually traveling to the realm of the dead. Why not? That would be sweet though, to have to convince her to let you go back to life and whatnot. And the other player character is like, "Why is she treating this way?" And he's like, she's my sister. she's my aunt or whatever. That'd be sweet, man. She looks at all imposing and then sees the character and is like, Uncle. Like, yeah, we'd like to go back to life. She's like, you haven't seen me in a long time. I thought you'd sit around for a couple thousand years. AJ Pickett says, I really miss Savage Species. Taking levels in your monstrous heritage was awesome. Wasn't that 3.x or something? Yeah, Norse mythology. Zev says in Norse culture it was respected. That's why they had a god of wit and trickery. Yeah. Mythos says it's a game. It's all good. Yeah, the idea of making jokes in the middle of combat, right? Even making jokes against enemies that they know before they're about to be killed is almost like a sign of respect, wasn't it? And of course, AJ says humor can be a valid conduit to catharsis, which I'm going to, let me see, cut and paste that and make it a T-shirt. Shaw's a Pikachu. Oh man, okay guys. Rickard says, nah, you pronounced it pretty much hell. Yeah, heel, pronounced heel. Yeah, but you see HEL, the comic books code authority would never let that go through. I mean, today they would, but back in the day, nah. Hella is a real name that young ladies probably had at that time, if not popularly. So yeah, the comics code would never let that get out of hand. Oh man. But guys, we're going to wrap it up here. Can't go on too much longer than an hour. I thought it would bring up Thor and so many of the things we can steal from it. As you know, we're just going down this deep, dark path of taking characters from the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Game of Thrones and basically stealing what we can to use them in our own tabletop RPGs. Even if you don't like the characters or even have any knowledge about the stories or the history, we can always find something. So if you're ever stuck for an idea, Odin, yeah. Oh man, as everyone says, seriously, DBJ, we should do an Egypt episode. Yeah, I think so. My fear is that I know my limitations and I'm not knowledgeable about it. But again, we can do it like we're doing now, where we're not necessarily trying to mimic the exact culture, but where we're trying to take the touchstones from it. So yes. AJ Pickett says, hella, the A was added to make it sound more Latin, which was fashionable in Norway long ago. They respected the Romans. Yeah, Mythos is maybe a Stargate episode as well. Zev says, I could help us through it. That idea was like Vahal, the A was added to N was a Latin edition. I didn't even know that. I did not know that. Wow, Valhalla. So you guys know me. I always take these suggestions under advisement, whether I act on it immediately or not. I absolutely do it. Like one of you guys brought up Spider-Man the other day, so I changed it. It was like, yeah, we're going to do Spider-Man coming up. Why the hell not? So I will absolutely take it under advisement, guys. Again, my salutation is, let's not measure our loves by our hates. You guys are always positive. You're always bringing your A game when we come together. So again, the RPG community is one in which we should embrace everyone and everything. We can't expect everyone to love or cherish the properties that we love. But again, we don't need to respond to the negativity. So as ever says, of course, man, it's your show. We love you. I love you guys too. This is like my morning coffee. So I'm able to like knock out the cobwebs. Oh, and just as a side note, I don't tend to promote my own channel or anything, but just letting you guys know, we are coming towards the end of our cinematic environs series. So Wetlands is coming up and Subterranean is coming up as well. I will try to put in a picture of the cover of the next book that will be coming out. Also, if you're a fan of Call of Cthulhu, I believe it's 7th edition. We've been translating both rules and the setting material into Call of Cthulhu for the cinematic environs as well. And for those who don't know, the cinematic environs are the books that we're writing that embrace the third pillar of gaming. So it's not just combat and social interactions, but it's the environment and using that. So the cinematic environs and all that information is down in the doobly-doo below the videos. But it's just basically us going, yeah, use the environment, wind, rain, fog, floods, sandstorms, and all that other kind of crap. So that's what it's about. You guys talking in the chat, DBJ AJ says, you're a classic, DBJ, always much appreciated, man. No problem. Oh yeah, I gotta take us out. AJ says, in all environs anthology, I will back that Kickstarter. I want a leather bound. Oh, kitty, I want a leather bound hardcover. That's what we're gonna do when the thank you, kitty. When each cinematic environment is done, they will all be combined together into a compendium. Because that's what we want to do. I mean, that's really it's really a labor of love. So, like our next book is going to be called Wetlands. Combination jungle, swamps, rainforests, bogs, marshes, estuaries, all of the above, right? So that's going to be one, and then the subterranean one. Underdark, but we can't use the word underdark. AJ knows all about about using copywritten material, because those of us on YouTube a lot get pinged quite a bit by that kind of stuff. So anyway, guys, everybody have a great day. I gotta head off to work. I will see thee Monday, where we will go into some of the more minor characters in Game of Thrones, but mind you, you don't need to know who they are or what they're about. Just participate. So guys, have a great one. See ya. Bye.